Hello, my name is Zara Saleh. I am a Kurdish author from Kurdistan, the Syrian part. I have written many novels in Arabic, Kurdish, and currently working on publishing a children's book in English. Beside my literature hobbies, I am a pharmacist. I have practiced a pharmacy over 17 years. Then I decided to focus on politics in an academic way, and I have completed a Master in Peace and Conflict Study in the UK. Now today I'm going to introduce you to a tragic love story from Kurdish heritage. That's actually based on true story, and it's called Mem and Zin. Mem and Zin is a tragic love story similar to Romeo and Juliet. Only difference is it's based on true story that happened in the late 14th century. It was written by the great Kurdish poet and philosopher Ahmadi Khani in the 17th century. Khani was born in Jazira Botan province, North Kurdistan, the same place as Mem and Zin were born, and has written this epic poem in his mother language. The story began in the castle of Zinedine, the prince of Botan who ruled the whole region. The main characters were Princess Zin, the princess of Botan's sister, and Mem, who was a clerk's son in the prince's palace. Zin and her older sister Seti were always dreaming to meet the night of their dreams in the Botan's kingdom.
It was the 21st of March, the Kurdish National New Year, called Nowruz, with Zoroastrian religious roots that is well known as a Freedom Day, where Kurds celebrate this day in nature and outdoors. On that day, Princess Zin and Seti decided to disguise themselves as men. On their way home, they meet two girls. As soon as their eyes meet, the two maidens fainted unconscious. Looking a moment at the statues and the heights, gazing a little at the airlocks and the mold, asking whose daughters they are, we wonder, or perhaps they could be the angels of God. In which place have these vines ripened? In which garden have these roses appeared? In which valley have these cypresses been growing? In which meadows have these birds been flying?
Whilst unconscious, Zin and Seti exchanged their diamond rings with the rings of the two girls on purpose so they can discover their secret later. The two girls were in fact two handsome young men who disguised themselves as women. The first one was Mem, and the other was his closest friend Tajin, the Wazir's son. When they woke up, Mem and Tajin thought it must have been a dream, but to a surprise they found the two different rings with the names of Zin and Seti on them. They both felt something strange. It was the feeling of falling in love.
Tajdin was sure he would be granted to marry the prince's sister Seti, as he is also from a noble family, whereas Mem wasn't. He assumed the prince wouldn't grant him to marry Zin. Tajdin straight away sent the ring to Seti and they get married later on. However, Mem refused to return Zin's ring because it had become a part of his soul and heart, and he was sure of his sad fate of not being allowed to marry his pure and angelic, beautiful Zin. Bakr or Bako was the prince's advisor. He was a cunning man. When he found out about Mem and Zin's love, he devised a plan in which to break the trust between the prince, Mem and his friend Tajdin. Bako tells the prince about Mem and Zin's love and added that Tajdin was supporting them as he was seeking to become the prince and replace him. Unfortunately, Bako's plan worked and Mem was imprisoned. The prince saw that He will never let his sister get married to Mum. Zine, on the other hand, stayed isolated in her room, refused to talk to anybody. Tears never left her eyes. She became weak and lost her smile and beauty, and began to tell poems and talk to walls, birds, and trees, revealing to them her love to Mum. You are the owner of my body and soul. I am the garden, you are my gardener. The orchid you nurtured is without the owner. What is their use without your presence? This line, moss, hair locks and flowers. This beauty and sweetness in the garden of complexion, black almonds and hazel eyes, pomegranates, pears, apples and tall trees. They are pleasant looking, delicious and tasty. Without any doubt, forbidden from anyone other than you. I will shake the dead palm of my body to let all the fruit fall down. With those violet and red flowers, basil and fresh violet, I mean it is better to squander away all this hair, moles and locks, and shed my leaves like flowers and scatter sand over me. I will pull out my hair one after one.
Similarly had happened to Mum. His strengths were lost, and he was no longer the courageous knight, walking back and forth on the banks of the Tigris River. He no longer saw what he deserved to live for in life if he couldn't marry Zine. Mum wasn't afraid of death. He was ready to sacrifice everything for his lover, and he refused to be a captive of the captives like Prince Zinedine.
I will not meet any princess. I will not be a captive of captives. Those metaphorical princes and ministers, this deception and illusion, they are all without exception empty and transitory. They have no future. They are mortal. A prince who is mortal is not a prince. As long as he can be removed, he is a captive. After a year in prison, the prince decided to visit his sister Zine in her room, but he was shocked by what his eyes saw when he met her. She was sick, pale, and looked as if she was dying, and couldn't say a word, but spewed blood when she coughed. The prince regretted seeing his sister's condition and decided to release Mum, who was also about to die in his prison. Zine asked her brother for permission as she wasn't sure Mum was still alive. You will not do anything shameful against Mum and me. When the wounded Mum passes away, allow me to go with his funeral. I will be with him until the graveyard, and when I die, you will give an instruction that I will be buried with him. Don't keep me away from him. Put me with him without a barrier. In prison, Mum saw Zine at the door. He thought it was a ghost or an imagination. He smiled at her and spoke poems that teared the eyes of everyone in the palace. Zine approached him and spoke to him with difficulty, great difficulty, for a few hours until he passed away in her arms while smiling, describing himself as the happiest person, as it was his last wish to see the face of his beloved Zine before his death. Tajuddin left the palace looking for Baku and was crying loudly after the death of his friend Mam. He killed Bakosh straight away when he met him.
In the same night, Zin passed away because of Mam's death. They both got buried together, and Bako was buried under their feet to be cursed by everyone who visits the graves of the lovers. Mam and Zin's grave in Jazira Bhutan became a shrine for lovers and still is. And actually, my wife and I visited their grave a few years ago.